Greetings, Patrick here. Dollar Theater Voters Edition. That's right. Been a couple weeks since we've done this. Just crazy weather and some other activities have gotten away. But we are back to talk about the winner of the last Dollar Tree Voters Edition. Um, Pretty much, I have to admit, for the most part, I don't ever really know who's going to win this. I have an idea, but very rarely do I ever put one down there knowing full well what's going to happen. And I admit it happened. I put this movie down and it pretty much ran away with the whole week. But I was all right because I just needed an excuse to watch it. I wanted an excuse to watch it again because I really did enjoy it. And I just got done talking with not that long ago. Actually, I did a watch party with Video Tasties. The last time I was on, we talked about this movie, but I wanted to come back here and talk about it a little bit more. And that is 2005's Sahara. That's right. Matthew McConaughey, Steve Zahn, Penelope Cruz, Lambert Wilson, Delroy Lindo, James Macy, William H. Macy. The cast is just stupidly good for this movie. And so I wanted to come back and talk about it because it's one of my favorite adventure films. Actually, it was for a long time. It was one of my favorite action adventure books. I have read Clive Cussler, who created the character of Dirk Pitt. I have been reading him since I was in high school. So that should tell you how long me and Clive have been hanging together. Um, and this is Clive Cussler was very protective of his characters, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Um, we'll talk about the this movie is really good, but man, it got waylaid, uh, and so badly that I'm not even sure if we'll even see another Dirk Pitt adventure, and that's including with that includes Clive Cussler passing away. He passed away a few years ago, but of course his the property still in his name. I think his son still is over Numa, over his estate. Um, so let me go back here and bring this up a little bit. Yeah. This is not the first movie with the name of Sahara. There's been a lot of books, I mean, a lot of movies with the name of Sahara, but this is 2005's. Um, so Dirk Pitt is played by Matthew McConaughey. Steve Zahn plays Al Giordano. His best friend, Penelope Cruz, is also in this film as Dr. Eva Rojas. So the movie starts off with very much like the book. And every part of every book, Clive Cussler has a prologue in which a true historical event has happened based on real history. Um, and in this one, it does talk about the American Civil War, and the Confederates were trying to escape, putting their money, they're trying to hide their money and what have you. Now, whether they try to go across the Atlantic Ocean is probably not probably, I should say this maybe like a half truth. And the fact that they did try to evacuate, they did try to get the gold out of Richmond, Virginia, when the war was going to be over. They did all that, but I don't think they took a ironclad, which was the USS Texas was. I don't think they would dare risk it very far out to the Atlantic, though that ironclads did fight in the Atlantic in the Civil War. They did fight out there. Believe it or not, they just weren't river. They weren't river boats. Um, so we see that with the ship with all the Confederate treasury is it slips out of Virginia in 1865, and lo and behold, it disappears. Then we meet Dirk Pitt, and we find out that the credits roll, and we see Dirk Pitt's history, his friendship with Al Giordano, He's pursuing the ship, the USS Texas, or the CSS Texas. You see the different characters. William Macy's Admiral James Sam Decker, who runs NUMA, National Underwater Marine Agency, which is actually a real thing, by the way, that was founded by Dirk Pitt. It started off as a fictional agency, but I think it's more quasi than I think it is official. I don't know if it's part of the government. I think government probably gives us subsidies and gives some assistance, but it's not. I don't think it's a national agency. But anyway, he is out there looking for clues. We meet Dirk Pitt. He's out there in Lagos, and he is looking for clues for the CSS Texas. When he sees that a young woman looking to get murdered. It turns out to be Eva Rojas. She is, her and her friend are trying to find out, a fellow doctor, find out why people are dying of this plague. And so she's trying to bring it to people's attention. And unfortunately, with her colleague Frank, and unfortunately, they're having a bit of trouble because they're in Mali, and well, there's civil war in Mali, and there's spreading, and this plague is spreading over into Lagos. So she's tracking it down and is going toward Mali, but they don't want her to go there, so they attempt to kill her, and Dirk Pitt has to save her, and then they communicate, like what he's doing there. He's there looking for the ship, the CSS Texas, and she's trying to stop the plague. So they talk together, and it seems like he wants to help her out, but unfortunately, both their ways are going separately. So Eva and her friend Frank are going into Mali overland, while Dirk and his crew, Rudy Gunn and Al, are going through the river. But the evil forces of Mali, led by the General Kazim, think that they have transported the doctor on their boat, and so he attempts to stop them. And thus we have a chase that goes on, and whereas Dirk and Al and Rudy escape close death. They try to tell them that they don't have the doctor on the board, but they still attack them and blow up their boat. And so Dirk says, well, we know now that what we need to do. Rudy has gotten a sample of the water, and he says it's red algae, which is devastating. And so Dirk says, well, we have to put our quest out for a side, because we got to go help the doctor, because they were after her, not us. So they go ahead. Dirk and Al head into Mali to try to help the doc, but by this time, enemy forces have found them, and they kill Frank and the rest of her team, and while she is down in a well, and she is actually down in the well trying to gather water for a sample when General Kazim forces arrive and kill everybody up there. And it looks like they're going to shoot down into the well. They can't see Eva down there, but they're going to shoot down anyway. But Dirk and Al get there just in time and take care of some business. So they rescue the doc, and then they proceed to, because she's saying, that the plague is coming from Mali. So they go ahead and saddle up and head on in to try to find out where this plague is coming from. Not knowing that it's from one of their benefactors. From the first mission that we see Dirk is on, one of his benefactors is actually one of the men behind the plague, and he's also in bed with General Kazim. So that causes a lot of problems. Dirk appeals to the rebels to help him out, but they just don't feel like they're strong enough. They're light infantry. Cavalry, almost you could say, and they would have no chance against the General Kazim forces, which has armor and air power. So it's just the three of them trying to stop this plan to basically the benefactor, Mossad, has created a toxic dump in the middle of the desert, and he now just realizes that his plant is really out of control, and that and if the water reaches the Atlantic Ocean, it's going to be devastating. It could be planet threatening. And so they have to stop the toxic dump from the factory from operating. So that's where we go. That's they have to stop that, and they're in the course of their adventures. They make a nice discovery at the end. I can't go into too much more detail. I'm giving it all away. You guys don't want to do that. It's been out there for 2005. You guys can look up the movie. I just want to talk about the movie a little bit, do a little deep dive on it. This is, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies, and it was good rewatching it. I liked it a lot. And really bitter about Clive Cussler, who basically ruined this movie. They gave him the movie was considered one of the biggest box office failures in history. Though on paper it's not really. It's the movie had a budget of $160 million, and it made $120 million back, but it had no chance at all to make its money back because Clive Cussler, after signing off on Matthew McConaughey for playing Dirk Pitt, and also signing off on Steve Zahn playing Al Giordano, he was against everything else in the movie. He had to be asked to leave the set. They had to bar him from the set because he was complaining so much. He talked to basically everybody that he could talk to about the movie and put it down before it got released. So the movie had a really bad reputation already before it got released in the theaters, and that's despite the star power of Penelope Cruz. I mean, the cast star power is really strong. So you got to imagine what he was saying in the press was so bad that people were turned off. They were turned off by the movie, despite a hell of a cast. I mean, holy crow! I mean, at 2005, Matthew McConaughey was at his peak. I mean, he's golden at the box office. Steve Zahn, extremely popular character actor. Penelope Cruz, international superstar. William H. Macy, Delroy Lindo. I mean, William Lambert. I believe he had done. The Matrix by the time this movie came out. And Lenny James, who would later on go on to star in The Human Target, and then he would end up getting really famous in The Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead. But you get the idea. They shot on locations. They employed a lot of people. This budget, $160 million. Yeah, I believe it. This is also before the publicity came out in 2004. So think about that. It's 20 years old of what the publicity would be for today. So the money that they had to spend for advertising, they actually spent it. They had to go out there and put it on television. They had to put it on anywhere they could to publicize the movie. A movie is really, like I said, it's really exciting. And for an origin movie. Now Clive Cussler, I think he was a little gun shy. Because he had okayed he had okayed another Dirk Pitt movie back in the early 70s called Race the Titanic. But Race the Titanic, despite having Richard Jordan as Dirk Pitt, was produced by Sir Lou Grade, who had a really bad reputation in Hollywood as being he was sort of like the Roger Corman of the UK. He made his movies for dirt cheap. The cheaper he could get it, the better. And so when you watch Race the Titanic, you see that the Race the Titanic is not a very good movie. It's very cheaply. It looks cheap, and not exactly the movie that not the movie that you probably would have wanted to come out on, because basically it was too ambitious. The book was great, but the movie at that time, back in the 70s, you just couldn't make it because the technology wasn't there for it. Now, if you were trying to do something like Race the Titanic today, that would be pretty interesting. That would be a very interesting movie to see, and I really would love to see that. But like I said, Dirk Pitt, the filmmakers had to take him to court. They took him to court and they won against Clive Cussler, and they won damages. They won millions of damages, but it didn't help the movie at all at the box office. And this is a real shame because I've read all his books, and I think the only two things I could actually see him being a little bit perturbed with, but I think he could have talked to the producers about it, was the fact that they did sort of make Dirk Pitt seem more like a treasure hunter. That's not who Dirk Pitt was. That's not at all what he was. He was a historian. He would be more. I mean, it was sort of like if you had the CSS Texas on one hand and you had what was Insider on the other hand to investigate. Dirk Pitt was going to investigate the ship. He wasn't going to go investigate the gold that was in the ship. That's never been Dirk Pitt's style. So I could understand that because he sort of played him out as a treasure hunter, and I can understand why he was a little bit perturbed by that, but not enough to go out there and ruin the movie. The other thing, but he signed off on this, so who am I to say otherwise? But the only thing I would have liked to seen is I would have liked seeing a little bit bigger Al Giorgano, because he's like 5'2", about 240, and Steve Zahn is he plays the part great. I mean he's like 5'8", 5'9", $150. Sort of like the Reacher type of thing, Jack Reacher type of thing. Tom Cruise is a great Jack Reacher, except that he's not Jack Reacher. He plays great Jack Reacher, but he's not Jack Reacher. And that's the only really two things that I personally was a little bit bummed about. And those were just mere quibbles. For an origin movie, man, this movie was popping. Great action. Great sense of humor, has everything you want in an action movie. It truly does. Has a interesting bad guy. The character of Massard, he was an interesting character, very interesting character. And of course he and Delroy Lindo played a CIA agent, and he just stole the scenes he was in. And at the end of the movie, man, you're clapping. You're clapping because he takes care of some business in the most subtle way. And it wasn't in the chemistry between the cast and the cast was great. The chemistry was really great. This movie came out right during when Rainn Wilson had gotten the role as Dwight on The Office. So he went from Sahara to The Office, and so that's where his star rose. But he had a really nice role here, and you could definitely see they were trying to set it up for future adventures. And what's really a shame is that they could have gotten it because Matthew McConaughey really was a big fan of Clive Cussler and Dirk Pitt. And he pursued the part for 7 years. He communicated with Clive. He talked to Clive, and when they met, Clive was such a stickler. He mentioned, well, you're blonde, and Clive's, and Dirk is a brunette, not a problem. You're blue eyes, and Dirk Pitt's green eyes, not a problem. And he wore contact lenses in the movie, green lenses. He really wanted this. Matthew McConaughey did. He really wanted this. He was an executive producer on the film, and he did a ton of publicity for it. And I just don't understand why no one has ever really understood why Clive Cussler was so virulent against this film, because believe me, there's been a hell of a lot worse films. And for an origin film, and you guys and I talk a lot about origin films, saying they're the hardest ones to make when you try to do a franchise. They are the hardest ones to make. You got to introduce the character. You got to introduce the circle of friends. Clive Cussler fans know about him. Oh, there's Rudy, there's Al, there's Sandecker, but the rest of us do not. So you got to go ahead and you got to give every character screen time, and to get them on screen. And I thought director Brett Eisner, I thought he did an awesome job with this movie. I think he did an awesome job with it. I think there was a lot of humor. There was some moving moments in it for sure. The pacing was great. I mean, this is a 2 hour and 5 minute movie, and it flies. This movie flies. It's there's a lot of ingenuity that Dirk Pitt shows in the books. It's one of the great things about it is Dirk Pitt is a very he's I dare say he's MacGyver before MacGyver. If you read some of the Clive Cussler books, you know what I'm talking about. He has come up with a lot of baling wire and bubblegum solutions in the Clive Cussler series. And So it's just a shame. It's just a shame that it's a fine movie and that he did not think so. And I don't see Clive Cussler, any of his characters, ever going on the big screen again. I think his estate will always say no, and that's a real shame. That's a real shame because he's such an interesting character. But that is 2005 Sahara, and it's one of my favorite adventures. There are some special features on here, including 2 commentaries, one by Brett Eisner by himself, director Brett Eisner by himself, and one with Brett and Matthew McConaughey. Now, I believe they did this, and they were very kind. I believe they did, they obviously had to do this after the movie was made. So they were very kind. They said nothing derogatory about Clive Cussler nor the legal problems they had, which they could easily have done that, but they did not. I thought that showed a lot of class from their side. But I would recommend this movie. If you're looking for a popcorn movie to watch on a Saturday or Friday night, like we were, I would definitely watch Sahara for sure. All right, that is it for this edition of Dollar Theater Voters Edition. We will be doing another 4 here in a minute as soon as I put this up and running. We are going to stay in the action zone. We're going to be staying in the action zone and a little bit. We're going to try something a little different. Not so easy this time. I'm looking at the 4 movies that we put out there for next week. It looks to me maybe one-sided, but I don't think so. I think it might. I think there's going to be some surprises here. And one movie. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think people will be okay. Let's see where it goes. And some of you guys might laugh at some of the movies I put out this week. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit the sub button, hit the like button, drop a comment. All right, talk to you guys soon.